And tonight on the Daily Wrap, Trump Palin 2016? Could this be the GOP dream team some have been clamoring for? President Obama's top healthcare official coming to the defense of Planned Parenthood as Republicans threaten to cut the group's funding. Religious groups now slamming the Boy Scouts for allowing gay troop leaders. And Christie promises to uphold the law on marijuana use if elected president. It's time to roll with the Daily Wrap. Get it? Live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, along with my co-host, Rick Unger.
Good evening, sir.
What are we talking about tonight?
Well, you know, I'm going to weave this in. I spent an interesting afternoon with our friend Heather Hansen here with Governor Rick Perry introducing his new stump speech.
Interesting.
It was interesting.
I heard it's still going.
It is.
Okay.
It's 2 hours and counting.
You should have offered him your glasses instead of the Rachel Maddow glasses.
Yeah, you think these would have been better for him than
much
the black
more
glasses?
stylish.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
No
we'll chat about that
All
with
right,
him.
good. To Mr. Glasses Right is America's pundit and Philly attorney. She is Heather Hansen. And finally, assistant online editor for Commentary Magazine, Noah Rothman. It must be Friday, or Wednesday, actually. Welcome, welcome.
If only
we wish it was Friday, but it's not.
It's still hump day.
Right, right. Wednesday has no feel. Anyway, let's get right to the Daily Download. And Donald Trump and Sarah Palin getting together for a Republican dream team. The 2016 GOP frontrunner is fueling that speculation in some circles after he told a radio host he could see himself offering the former Alaska governor and 2008 McCain running mate a position in the Trump administration.
I mean, I'd love that because she really is somebody that knows what's happening, and she's a special person. She's really a special person, and I think people know that.
And for her part, Governor Palin also said nice things about Mr. Trump, saying he's giving a voice to the untold millions fed up with the direction of our country. Okay, Rick. Look at the smirk on your face.
Just the place for her in the cabinet.
Really?
Yeah, in the lower left-hand drawer, just underneath the
that
sweaters.
kind of cabinet.
Oh, well, it must be, because who in their right mind would want to put Sarah Palin in a cabinet today? I don't know if anybody noticed, but she wasn't particularly helpful in her last race for vice president. Mm-hmm. And as near as I can tell, certainly ever since her CPAC speech, she's not doing so well anymore.
Yeah, the reality show is now off the air.
Yeah.
That she had. Obviously, her unfavorable numbers have gone up north of 50%. Yet, Trump, I think in this case, was simply being Trump, saying she's a nice lady, I love it, off the cuff, I'd put her in my cabinet. Really didn't put much thought into the comment.
That's now
Heather.
just how this works. Whatever Trump says.
Definitely.
What do we all say? It's just Trump being Trump. Go on.
It's the Brett Favre rule. Brett Favre being Brett Favre.
Who
Throws
cares?
an interception? It's okay.
I think he is smarter than that. I think he knows that she would. I mean, look how well that worked out for McCain, right? I mean, I just don't think that.
And that's when she was somewhat popular.
Right, and that's when no one knew enough to know that she probably wouldn't make a good vice president. Mm-hmm. I think at this point, the only people that want it is people who would be entertained by it.
Noah, do you have a different opinion on this, or same?
Not really, kind of a similar-ish opinion. There is a segment of the conservative, not the Republican, the conservative electorate that really genuinely believes that John McCain lost because of John McCain, and he only did as well as he did because Sarah Palin was on the ticket. They believe that Sarah Palin, and not John McCain, would have won in the 2008 election against Barack Obama. This is untethered to reality, but it is something they genuinely believe. This is something akin to what Donald Trump says along the lines of he would undeport good immigrants and deport bad immigrants. He would have a, quote, terrific healthcare reform alternative. His positions are calibrated insofar as they appeal to people who like good things and don't like bad things.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
This is
the extent of the depth
of his campaign.
Other politicians
but
should give it a try. It's an interesting strategy.
To say it works. It works for some people.
Overarching themes seem to resonate, though, because they're easy to absorb, understand, and in general, he's offering an optimistic perspective on the future.
I would counter that a little bit, too, because optimism is saying America is a great nation that can be revived and can be its greatness can be accelerated. His claim is we can make America great again. The implication there is it's not great right now, and I will be the engine that create a greater America.
Do you think it's great right now?
Yes, I certainly do. I certainly think that this is
the
greatest
right
nation
track,
ever.
wrong track numbers seem to indicate otherwise.
No, but
Wrong
see,
track
Noah-
doesn't mean it's not a bad. That it means we're in a bad direction. It doesn't mean that the country
That's
is
right.
in a bad place.
Noah gets America. And I love that he said that. It is so true. This nation has always been great, and I'm telling you, long after I'm gone, I don't know about you, it's going to be great. And that's exactly right. You cannot be happy with its current trajectory or what's going on right now. It's happened many times in our history, but that doesn't change the fact that it's a great nation.
Let me be clear before the YouTube gets on me saying I don't think, like a Michelle Obama moment, I don't think the country's great anymore, I'm not proud of it. Of course I think it's great. I just think it could be vastly improved to a position where it was at one point.
Yeah, I think people, and that's what people want to see. They want to see us get better because we're capable of so much more. But I think everyone agrees that it's the country.
Okay, well, Donald Trump has certainly shaken things up in a crowded Republican field. Take a look at this analysis from The Hill. Since Trump's entrance into the race, Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Mike Huckabee, and Rand Paul have all seen their numbers fall, with Dr. Carson and Senator Rubio down more than 3%. But Jeb Bush and Scott Walker have actually seen their numbers rise since the Trump announcement. What do these numbers tell us, Noah Rothman?
Well, these are national polls. They're not state-level polls. The numbers are very different on the state level. But I'm very surprised by who is losing and who is gaining under the Trump surge. It seems to me as though there was a Jeb alternative vote that shifted over to Donald Trump, and that hurt a lot of the other non-Jeb candidates, whereas it sort of solidified the establishment support around Jeb and Scott Walker as well.
I was surprised to see Rubio in that group that lost a lot from the input of Trump, because Ben Carson similar, Mike Huckabee similar in that they're sort of outliers, but Rubio seemed to me more like Walker and Bush. He seemed sort of like a center-right type of candidate, so I was surprised to see his fall. But I think that, again, we're very early on, and Trump is taking up all of the oxygen. Give Rubio a little bit of oxygen, he may raise back up.
Right. Walker announced. Rubio hasn't announced in a while, or it's been a while since he came onto the team, but he's not getting any oxygen.
What those numbers show you, in my opinion, is that you have two Republican primaries going on. You have the real one, where Jeb Bush is improving, and Marco Rubio is in the real one. He's just losing steam a little bit to Jeb Bush, although maybe not in Florida. And then you have the reality show, right? The Trump one. And that's what it's telling you. It's telling you who we really expect to be the nominee is Jeb Bush, maybe Scott Walker. But we're going to pretend we like Trump in the meantime because it's so much fun.
Okay, and you forgot John Kasich in your walk.
Well, that's because he wasn't in those numbers.
As well, he will be. While Jeb Bush may have gotten a bump in the polls since Trump's announcement, he's now losing to Trump in his home state of Florida. It's true. Mr. Trump leads Governor Bush by 6 points and Senator Marco Rubio, another Florida native, by 16 points. Is that a source of concern to be trailing in your home state, Rick Unger?
It's a source of concern to Marco Rubio because that number should be better. I doubt that Jeb Bush is losing any sleep over it at this point. Florida primary is a long way away. I think a lot of the Trump phenomena, if we dare call it that, will have burnt off by then. And if I'm Jeb Bush, I'm feeling pretty good about it because I'm well ahead of the person who would scare me the most.
Absolutely. I think you'd be feeling really good about all the numbers that we've seen today, and the fact that Trump has really had little to no impact on him, which is interesting.
Because he goes after him the most.
Right.
Noah?
I don't trust that poll at all. It was it's not a live caller poll. It's an outlier, a dramatic outlier. The last live caller poll showed Jeb Bush doing substantially better than anybody else in the field, including Marco Rubio and Donald Trump.
Explain those polls real quick for the layman's at home.
Well, a live caller poll calls people and talks to them and as an actual interactive person, as opposed to, yes, this isn't a web poll. Web-based polls have a tendency to self-select. You don't know what the sample is. The sample tends to, they try to be scientific about it, but there's only so much you can do. It's just a step down from automated polls, so it's not really reliable.
Very good. And finally, Rick Perry is offering a challenge to Donald Trump. Perry was asked today to respond to some criticism Trump had for the former Texas governor.
He questioned your energy, toughness, and quote-unquote brain power that it might require to run a successful campaign. What would you say to Mr. Trump if he were standing here saying that in your presence?
Let's get a pull-up bar out there and see who's doing my pull-ups.
All right, quickly, who wins that contest in the pull-ups, Perry or Trump?
I don't think that's a hard one. I think we're giving that to Perry.
All right, very good. Heather?
Perry all the way.
Probably Perry, but they're both very old.
Oh,
It's
True, says the 30-something-year-old. Big media and critics say Donald Trump isn't prepared to take over the White House, while many are saying he is. In fact, he wrote a whole book outlining exactly what he would do as president. It's called Time to Get Tough. The bestseller details Donald Trump's plan for our southern border, China, terrorism, much, much more. If you you want to learn more about Trump's plan, check it out at newsmax.com/TrumpBook. Back with more in a moment.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Republicans are pushing full steam ahead with their effort to defund Planned Parenthood. This, of course, after the release of some highly disturbing videos. Now, on the videos, Planned Parenthood medical personnel are seen discussing the cost of supplying aborted fetal tissue for medical research. Even Hillary Clinton has weighed in, saying she's disturbed by the videos. As a result, an effort is now underway in the United States Senate to fully defund Planned Parenthood. An effort that, if successful, would result in the loss of an excess of $500 million every year, which is given to Planned Parenthood by the taxpayers. While the Senate effort is being driven by Republicans, Kentucky Senator and 2016 hopeful Rand Paul says he might even be able to get a few Democrats on board.
I think there are some pro-choice Democrats. There are many pro-choice Americans who are horrified by this because they don't think of abortion as turning the baby around and harvesting baby parts and showing kidneys and livers and lungs and hearts that are then being resold. The gruesomeness of this cannot be overstated.
Joe Concha, could this actually happen? Could we actually see the full defunding of Planned Parenthood?
I think Rand Paul is right in where he says Democrats could jump on board because now they have the green light from Hillary Clinton, who even says...
Well, Hillary Clinton said she was disturbed by what she saw. That there's a long stretch between I'm disturbed by what I saw to let's fully defund Planned Parenthood.
She never, when these videos first came out, July 23rd, she wouldn't even, she said this is a coordinated attack against Planned Parenthood. It's been going on for years, and now she's changed that position somewhat because how could you not after seeing at least the third video?
Heather, is this the next shot in the war against women?
No, it's absolutely ridiculous. You know, I think Rand Paul is correct in that it's not a Democrat or a Republican thing. It's not even a pro-choice or a pro-life thing. 38% of people, according to a Vox poll, are neither pro-choice nor pro-life. It is a difficult issue, and when you start talking about moving the bodies to get parts, it's like that Kermit Gosnell trial that happened, where it is so disgusting that even people who consider themselves pro-choice have a problem with it.
It's not pro-life or pro-choice. I'm sorry to jump in. What are they?
Well, yeah.
Those people, it depends on the situation. It depends. Is it rape? Is it at a certain point in the
they're pro-life in some instances, pro-choice in some instances.
They have a difficult time putting themselves in black and white. It's a gray area.
Noah, what about, let's say this actually happens, what about those rural areas where Planned Parenthood is all that's available to women needing to get preventative care, mammograms, all these things that Planned Parenthood services? I mean, abortion, at least they say, abortion is only 3% of the services provided by Planned Parenthood.
I would say that the ultimatum that would be presented to Planned Parenthood in that instance is that you stop providing abortion services if you want to maintain federal subsidies. And then Planned Parenthood would be forced to do that.
Do you believe that they separate it or not? I mean, the way it's supposed to work
money is fungible.
Planned Parenthood is supposed to never use a taxpayer dollar to fund abortion.
Money is fungible. There's no way for us to know whether or not they are and will forever be putting this in a lockbox that doesn't get touched. There's no way to determine that. So you would say to Planned Parenthood that you cease to provide abortion services, at which point local providers would be able to provide that service and you pay for it. And there are communities that don't want that, like Mississippi, which has very limited access to abortions, and that's a whole other issue. But it's just simply improper and immoral to be providing taxpayer subsidies for an organization that provides this service.
So another 2016 contender, Dr. Ben Carson, a retired pediatric neurosurgeon, is also weighing in on these videos.
I have a hard time believing that a lot of Democrats and progressives can actually just look at this and say, ho hum, it's just a clump of cells. And interestingly enough, you know, that's the excuse that they give for, you know, abortion. It's a clump of cells. It's not really a human being. If it's not a human being, then why are you harvesting organs from it?
Now, Joe, on the show yesterday, I pointed out that while I've always been supportive of Planned Parenthood, I do think an investigation is in order here, a Justice Department investigation. What I don't understand is why the Senate is so quickly moving forward. I believe a vote may happen as soon as next Monday to defund the organization before there's been an investigation. Because don't we even care anymore about that?
The momentum is there from a PR perspective.
From
to
a
go
PR
ahead.
perspective.
Right, right. And by the way, as far as this group that taped all these videos, they are executing this as well as you can imagine. They are spacing out the releases of the videos. Once the last video runs out of legs, they have another one. And there will be more and more, Rick. That
So
I can
they say.
guarantee you.
They say there's another 20 or so yet to come.
And I think that the idea of defunding it and while they do the investigation is attractive to a lot of people. People don't want this type of thing to continue. And as these tapes come out, I think that the drive will be even greater. And our
Do you
senators
support the idea of defunding it?
I support the idea of defunding it while an investigation goes on, sure.
Well, but then you shut it down because investigations take a long time. You can't shut down every Parenthood and hope that they're ever going to reopen.
They don't have to take as long as they do. Perhaps this will
But
put
they
a little
will.
fire
But you know that it won't because the Republicans are going to control the investigation.
Yeah, but I don't think that people are necessarily looking to shut down Planned Parenthood. I think people are looking to see what is going wrong.
Shutting it down.
But Rick, there's problems there. There are problems in these tapes. There's illegalities.
Well, you don't know that. There may be illegalities.
If they're manipulating the body.
So if they are, there may be illegalities. I acknowledge that there's a need for investigation. But Noah, how do you shut down a place that so many women depend upon, not for abortion services, but for key medical services, while you take the next 2 years? I mean, it'll never reopen if it's shut down. Would you agree?
Well, I'm going back to my original point, which is we're not shutting this down. You're shutting yourself down in the event that you refuse to comply with the law. If there was no profit motive involved here, we wouldn't be talking about individuals maximizing profit. It's literally what they're saying. They're saying we can maximize our returns if we do it this way.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I can certainly make the argument, you may be right, but I can make the argument for why they're trying to maximize getting as much of their cost back as possible.
That's not reimbursement. We're not talking about reimbursement.
How do you know we're not?
Talking about this. They're not talking about losing money on this. They're talking about maximizing the potential gain at the end of the rainbow here.
I have a feeling we're going to keep talking about this for a while. So we do want to hear your thoughts on Planned Parenthood. We all certainly have a couple. To do that, you can go to newsmaxtv.com/comments. Let us know what you think. As you know, we've been reading comments on the air and will no doubt read yours. Coming up, the Boy Scouts lifted their ban on gay troop leaders, but not everyone is happy about it. Stay with us.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. The Boy Scouts of America now under fire from religious groups after lifting its ban on gay scout leaders. The Southern Baptist Convention says the Boy Scouts caved to social pressure. The Mormons, the biggest supporter of the Boy Scouts, says it's re-examining its relationship. And here's what a former Scoutmaster has to say about the direction of the Boy Scouts.
If we let the poisons of the homosexual and lesbian agenda start to pervert our nation's youth and try to make something that's abnormal normal, to change something that's wrong into right, then it's going to poison and destroy that organization to the point that it's not like even going to be recognizable to the founders of Boy Scouts. If they were alive today, they probably wouldn't say, oh my gosh, 10 years from now, I can't even recognize what the Boy Scouts are, because that's not what we started.
So what's the impact of this decision? Boy Scout troops that are sponsored by a church can claim exemption from this new directive. What do you think about the Boy Scouts lifting this ban on gay troop leadership?
I honestly don't know why these religions are making such a big fuss out of this. Not only are they exempt if it in any way interferes with their religious beliefs, but 70% of all Boy Scout troops in this country are affiliated with a religious institution. So we're talking about 30%. Now, I got to tell you, I was a Boy Scout, and I have absolutely no idea what the sexual preference was of my scout leader. Couldn't tell you for all the money in the world, and frankly, at that age, it never occurred to me to think about it. This is the kind of paranoia that makes people sit there and go, oh, shut up.
What level did you get to in the Boy Scouts?
Oh, not as far as, I certainly didn't, no, not that far.
Okay. Fascinating.
I'm not good at knots and camping. And,
Forget comments. I want to show pictures of Rick and the Boy Scouts.
I mean, if I could have stayed at a nice hotel and gotten my merit badge, yeah, it'd been fine.
The 5-star Boy Scout.
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Heather, weigh in.
Yeah, listen, I think that they have the right to, and like you said, 70% are religiously run. So those people already have the choice. The rest of them, I think that, we saw this coming earlier this year where the head of the Boy Scouts said that this is the future, and the lack of discrimination, if it's not based on a religious reason, is the future. And that's what we are trying to come to in America, where we have same-sex marriage being legal. It is going to be a step-by-step process, because we have got religious freedoms up against the freedoms of the gay and lesbian community, and it is going to be difficult. Here, I think they came down in the right place.
Where do you think the fear is coming from? That there'll be a gay troop leader, and that troop leader will say, you know, you really shouldn't like girls anymore. That guy over there.
By the way, one year
cute.
I had a female scout leader, and I have not yet started shaving my legs.
Which you should.
As a result of it. Well, maybe. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that, to be honest, I think the fear comes from there have been some circumstances where there has been accusations of molestation with
church
leaders.
camps, too.
I totally agree. But I think that that must be, at least in part, where the fear comes from. You know, it's interesting, the Boy Scouts also don't allow atheists or agnostics. Mm-hmm. They're not allowed. It is their choice as a private company to do that. Now, when it comes to gay and lesbian, it's a little bit different, but I think that easing in this way is appropriate.
No?
I'm building on what you said, because I think that was quite comprehensive. To the extent that I've heard a non-bigoted argument that says why you shouldn't have gay scout leaders, it centers on the notion that there's going to be some form of sexual assault, in the sense that these individuals may not be uniquely prone towards sexually assaulting young men, but you wouldn't put a young man who's heterosexual in with a bunch of girls in the middle of the woods. The assumption is that you can't control yourself around this temptation. It's a faulty argument. It's really the assumption is somewhat bigoted, in the sense that you believe that they can't control themselves around this temptation, in the same way that you were to walk into a bank, for example, and you really like money and you just can't control yourself around all this money. You have to rob the place. It falls apart upon some even modest scrutiny, but that's the only argument that I've heard that rests on some logic.
That's right. And what disturbs me immensely is, as I said, I'll bet you that you would find there have been more reported incidents of counselors at summer religious camps that have done things like that than you'd find in the Boy Scouts, not to mention the fact of grown-ups in certain religions who have gotten a little bit involved with molestation of children, and they're worried about Boy Scout leaders. Are you kidding me?
And remember, as you know, as a Boy Scout, you are trained to use a pocket knife. So if somebody tries to get fresh, right, you can take care of business.
Absolutely.
It's not that easy.
And then you just say the Boy Scout pledge, and it's all good.
Right. Heather, last word.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a difficult balance, and I think that they're trying to find it. And people on either side aren't happy, which we always say that's a good settlement when everybody's a little bit mad about it. So I think they'll ease their way in and figure it out.
Yeah, it's the momentum of the gay movement, as we saw this year with the Supreme Court ruling. I mean, 3-4 years ago, if you told me all these things were going to be happening, I'd say you're crazy. Right. Now it's inevitable, and unfortunately, this is something that people just need to accept, because this is American 2015.
It's the right thing to do.
The religion versus in this issue is we're going to see more of that in the courts.
Okay. So what do you think about the Boy Scouts lifting their ban on gay troop leaders? Go to newsmax.com/comments. That's newsmax.com/comments, and let us know. There it is, right below. Coming up, Governor Christie speaking out on marijuana today. We'll let you know where he stands. This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV.
And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. New Jersey Governor Christie is speaking out against the legalization of marijuana. At a town hall in New Hampshire Tuesday, Christie said, and I quote, "If you're getting high in Colorado today, enjoy it. As of January 2017, I will enforce the federal laws." The outspoken governor stuck to his guns on Fox and Friends this morning as well.
You take an oath of office, Brian. I take one as governor. I will take one as president that says that you'll enforce the laws, not just enforce the laws you like, you'll enforce the laws. And marijuana is against the law in the United States, and it should be enforced in all 50 states.
And Christie isn't particularly worried about losing the youth vote over this either.
I don't think you lose voters by telling them you'll enforce the law. If a large percentage of the people in this country want to legalize marijuana, then I assume that what will happen is Congress will go ahead and legalize it. But you cannot have it both ways. You can't have it where it's a law on the books and it's against the law, and then you selectively enforce it in certain places.
So the latest Monmouth University poll has Christie in 8th place with just 4% of the vote. Joe, I got to ask you a question. I mean, Governor Christie, I'll ask all of you, he is running for the Republican nomination, am I correct?
Yes.
And isn't it fairly traditional for Republicans to take the point of view of states taking the lead in these sorts of issues?
No, what he's...
Why is Christie saying to the states, even though you voted this in or your legislature passed it, I'm coming to get you?
Because I remember Democrats having a problem with nullification. What we've seen in this executive is an executive who does not enforce law, who chooses laws that he wants to enforce. No, we're talking about the presidency. What we're talking about here is a series of precedents that have been set by this president that are very dangerous.
And
that have to do with what laws he wants to enforce and what laws he doesn't want to enforce. Chris Christie has a great record on drugs. He has been a champion for drug sentencing enforcement since he's been in this office. He is a treatment, not prison guy, and he's really good on this. And politically, he's telling swing voters, I'm going to take something away from you. That's a terrible political argument. It's also an extraordinarily principled argument, and he should be commended for it.
It's also totally interfering with what Chris Christie would say are at the heart of his fundamental beliefs: states' rights. Marijuana. Let me finish the point. Let me finish the point. Marijuana falls under health, safety, and general welfare. Correct? I don't know how you could argue otherwise. So that is something specifically reserved to the states, Heather, not to the federal government.
But now that you've got two conflicting laws, the federal government already has the law, and it can't be state by state. Now you've got interstate commerce. It is just like sanctuary cities, which is the other thing that he brought into this argument. And I think it's a good point, and I agree with you, Noah, that it's dangerous, where you've got 53% of the population wanting it legalized, 39% of Republicans. At the same time, when he talks about the sanctuary cities and saying, change the law then, my job is to enforce the law, and people want our laws to be enforced. They want a president, to Noah's point, who's going to enforce the laws.
Well, I'm guessing that there's not a majority of people, as you both kind of pointed out, that want to enforce this particular law.
Think they want this.
So, Joe, is the answer here to get rid of the federal laws on marijuana and stick to your conservative beliefs that this is a state issue and they should make the call, and if Colorado wants to legalize pot, up to Colorado?
I believe in states' rights in this situation. I think Colorado and Washington have shown the revenue that's been produced in these situations have been good for those
Not
states.
To mention really happy people.
Yeah. Just from just a moral perspective, people that smoke weed on a daily basis aren't very productive members of society. I think overall it has a harmful effect.
And people who drink all day aren't particularly productive either, are they?
No, I get that. So why put one more thing out there that can make this country less productive?
Well,
that's where I have a problem. And by the way, you're making the roads less and less
By the
safe.
way, isn't that government being the nanny state when you make the point, why put one more thing out there? Shouldn't it be up to people to decide themselves?
I absolutely believe that. I think there's a real contradiction in the nature of our intoxication laws and what laws we choose to enforce and what laws we don't choose to enforce, and what substances we proscribe and what ones we don't really have a problem with, or activities for that matter. You could say precisely the same thing about productivity, about internet pornography. There's really no limiting principle there. It doesn't really make any sense.
Apparently.
Congress should absolutely change federal drug laws. They should allow states to regulate and legalize this as they see fit based on referendum. Until they do, there is a federal law prohibiting this, and right now it's not being enforced, and that's not the job of the executive.
That's right. There you go.
And Rick, this is what
you're all wrong. I'm sorry.
This is the Trump effect, also. By the way, Christie's trying to find an issue that gets him some oxygen, and this worked just like it did with Huckabee and the Iran deal.
I think that's right.
He's, by the way, personally very opposed to marijuana use. He really genuinely doesn't like it.
Right, and it's not the right issue. I mean, if you compare, Colorado governor came out and said that they are doing much better. I think that they were, in the CNBC poll, were number 7 for businesses as opposed to New Jersey, which was 42. So it's not an issue that's going to do a whole lot of good for Chris Christie, but I think that he's trying to just distract from Trump at this point.
Would you legalize it if you were a governor?
No.
You wouldn't?
No.
Why?
Because I think that all of Joe's points are good. I think that there's a lot of arguments. The DEA has a whole memo about it, that of all the harm that it can bring, that we sort of gloss over when we have this conversation.
Would you then take away alcohol too? Because there's similar memos.
I mean, we'd have to. I mean, it's more than we can talk about in the next 10 seconds.
Well, yeah, but
I would not.
That would close down Heather's Beach House. Like
the point. Yeah, the point is, I don't know why one's okay and not the other. Do you agree with Governor Christie's position on marijuana? If so, weigh in at newsmaxtv.com/comments and let us know. I'll be reading those comments with great interest. Up next, we're going to read some of your viewer comments, so don't go anywhere.
And welcome back to Daily Wrap. Let's read some of your viewer comments as promised. First up, we have a comment from Joshua who says, I'm a 58-year-old American Jew living in Israel. I think that Mike Huckabee really gets it. If you would step outside the USA and live in a target zone like Israel, you would realize how much of a threat Iran is. Rick, who would know better?
I think he's missing the point. I don't think anybody's taking any issue with Mike Huckabee's point of view about this deal. They're taking issue with the wording he chose. And by the way, the Israeli ambassador is right there with those of us who think that he really made a terrible choice of words.
What did Netanyahu say about this? I never got a comment from him. He
hasn't
weighed in.
Ron Dermer has.
The
ambassador.
equivalent.
Right, we read that a couple nights ago. No?
I actually got some heat for saying that this was, in America, a hyperbolic and very unhelpful statement, but my outrage wasn't sufficiently outragey. So I got a little bit of heat, and I didn't do that specifically because I don't understand the Israeli experience. I don't know what it's like to live with Qassam rockets over your head and with a siren going off every 2 minutes. I don't know what that's like, and I don't know what it's like to fear for your being obliterated by a nuclear weapon that's delivered to you via Hamas through Lebanon. I don't know what that's like, and I refuse to comment on that. So there is a certain amount of experience that I think we should be a little bit more respectful of. What people took an objection to is this notion that President Barack Obama is Demyanuk, who's shoveling Jews off into the oven. That's unhelpful, that's crude, that's ugly.
I saw it as Neville Chamberlain, and Heather did as well, and some other folks saw it exactly as you saw it. But the problem is that when you use a metaphor like that, again, that's what we're talking about instead of the deal.
The deal itself.
That's right. We should be talking about the deal.
Well, we probably will soon. I'm just guessing. But next, we have a comment from Kenneth who says, Hillary is a long-time, documented serial liar. Nothing she says or does will change that truth. Kenneth, that's a little intense.
Ken was probably a Hillary voter.
I doubt it.
And then ever since the dead broke comment has suddenly, look, this is something that obviously every Republican will say about Hillary when the general election comes up, that you simply can't trust her. That is the bumper sticker, a long one, mind you, that we're going to hear.
I will give Kenneth this. Hillary is a politician. And to me, if you're a politician, you probably are a serial liar.
There are degrees of lying, though.
Yeah, I mean, she's really, we know her trustworthiness is in the
It's not good.
It's not good, and there's a reason for that. And that idea, that premise, is one that is going to continue.
Well, but the funny part is, I mean, he's saying she's a big liar. Now, if Hillary's trustworthy numbers, as disastrous as they are, is less tied to a lie she may have told as opposed to her behavior.
Well, and lies about her
behavior is that she lies.
Right.
A lot. And it's documented, it's provable, they're very shallow and transparent, and they fall apart within minutes. They're bizarre lies. They're like lies a 3-year-old would tell, where you would just go and fact check it and immediately know that you're lying. It is compulsive. It's strange behavior.
You think Mike Bloomberg's watching right now? Because, Mike, there may be an opening in the Democratic Party for,
the vice president. If they're going to fall back on anybody, it is the sitting vice president.
Not the San Antonio mayor. Latino
no, not yet.
Oh,
not yet?
Mr. Castro.
Right.
He's not beat.
That's a West Wing script.
Right.
That was right out of the West Wing.
Okay. Well, I was talking to Martin Sheen just a couple nights ago, and he said, last night we asked who else should run for the Democratic ticket. Kay says she agrees with me. Elizabeth Warren is a good choice instead of Clinton. She's a woman, okay. She's to the left of Hillary, but she's unknown and fresh, okay. Not a lot of baggage. That is true. With Warren, it's kind of like Sanders in that you're at least getting somebody principled and somebody that isn't lying in any capacity. She believes what she says and says what she believes.
I agree she's principled. I think she's a wonderful woman, and she has a zero chance of ever being elected president of the United States. She does have a record. She does have a history. I may not find it to be troublesome, but I think you will.
All right, not president, but could she get the nomination? That's the question.
It depends how badly Hillary self-destructs and who else steps in. If nobody were to step in, yeah, she could as a whatever you want to call it vote, but she won't be the
spoiler
president.
vote. Yeah. Okay, Heather?
I agree with that, and I think she does have some baggage, especially if you're from Massachusetts. There's a lot of people there who do not like her one bit.
I'm not necessarily sure that she can arrest. I mean, she would probably take Bernie's momentum at this point, but people are starting to get attached to Bernie Sanders. So I don't know if you can just take that away in a whim.
Very good. Rick?
So finally, Will says, I keep hearing how upset people get over Planned Parenthood staff having lunch or eating a meal while discussing procedures. I assume that none of these people have doctors as family members or close friends. Procedures are often discussed over a meal. He's right about that. I mean, I know that it doesn't make it any less disturbing to people who are offended by these tapes, but it is true. Doctors do talk about this differently than the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I deal with doctors all the time, and I'm surprised sometimes by the way that they do, but I think it's a little bit different when you're talking about abortion and what they're supposed to be doing versus what it is that they're saying that they're doing on these tapes.
Right.
Very good. Well, remember, if you want to weigh in on any of these issues we talk about here on the show, be sure to go to newsmax.com/comments and let us know what you think. We say we're going to read them on the air, and we actually do that. Anyway, we might even read your comment on the air, as I just said. Anyway, up next, it's time for Yay or Nay. This is the Daily Wrap on a very hot night here in New York City. And welcome back to Daily Wrap. It's that music. It's that time for Yay or Nay. First up, North Carolina Congressman Mark Meadows wants to kick Speaker of the House John Boehner out of his position. Meadows, Mr. Boehner has been trying to consolidate power and has even threatened House members who may vote against him. Most recently, Meadows was removed from his position as chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Subcommittee. He's since been reinstated. Stripping a House Speaker from his leadership post has only been tried once before, 105 years ago, or we like to call it around here, Rick's sophomore year. And it was unsuccessful. Does Meadows have a Meadows? Why do I have trouble with that? He's a media reporter. I keep saying Maddow.
It's because
Meadows.
He's hardly a memorable congressman.
Okay.
Look, I don't really care. I have no dog in this hunt. They can do whatever they want. It's not going to happen. You know what? And by the way, speakers stripping members who don't play ball of their post is as old as my freshman year.
Well done.
And I think that's the problem. I mean, if we start this, it's a very bad precedent. I think that they should be working at their jobs and not trying to kick people out of theirs. It's not a good thing to start doing it within the
I'd love to hear your take on this.
Yeah, if he's actually making an interesting, if ironic, argument for leadership change. If the argument is that the Senate has messed up with the Export-Import Bank reimposition, but the House has a bill that is just a short-term imposition of this thing. It really goes around the Senate's issues. So the House is actually fine on this. It's more conservative than the Senate. In a news cycle that's dominated by this Iran deal, which is imploding in this country, the Planned Parenthood scandal, if this Speaker and his leadership can't whip this conference, which is just a herd of cats, into some sort of shape, Democrats would never be doing this. Democrats move in far more lockstep. Democrats are far more disciplined. If this leadership can't discipline this House conference, then they deserve to be changed.
A symbolic move, no question. So Donald Trump has gone on record saying he is worth billions of dollars, upward of $10 billion to be exact. However, the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, yes, that is a real thing, found that Mr. Trump is actually worth closer to $2.9 billion. $2.9 billion, $10 billion. What difference does it really make at this point, Rick Unger?
You know what I'm going to say.
You don't care.
I so don't care how much money Donald Trump has. Makes no difference to me whatsoever.
But this is a fact check kind of thing. He said $10 million, and now there's a $7 billion difference.
Are you trying to say that Donald Trump might have lied?
No.
Are you crazy?
It's just
Donald Trump wouldn't lie.
It's hyperbole. It's exaggeration. It's nothing more. Heather.
Yeah, see, I do. I think that's the problem. I don't care about how much money he makes, but when he lies to us, what else are you lying about? It's the same thing as Hillary.
But it won't matter to the people who have this thing for him because he's been lying consistently.
No, quickly.
And they don't care.
Yeah, he lies consistently. He said in a deposition, I learned it from politicians, and that sense I'm just like a politician. So he's being just like a politician.
Okay, well, poll numbers will probably go up again as a result. Anyway, a new report out of the Pentagon today says that climate change is, quote, an urgent and growing threat to our national security, even blaming climate change for an increase in natural disasters, which in turn will worsen a number of existing problems like poverty, poor leadership, the environment, weak political institutions, the Patriots' first 4 games without Tom Brady. Other studies have questioned the correlation, including a report from the United Nations that found there was insufficient evidence. Can climate change really do all of this damage, yay or nay? Noah?
Nay, this is one of the worst canards of the climate change movement. The problem isn't climate change, as you said. It exacerbates problems that are tied to national security. What are acute national security threats are those that are actually military threats, and it's a real shame to conflate those two things.
Heather.
I'm not enough of a scientist to say. I'd rather err on the side of caution.
Like a politician.
Rick?
Be careful.
You know what? It depends. I do agree with Noah. It's not a current immediate threat. Long term, if it's for real, then yeah, you can see how this could cause problems that could ultimately be national security issues. White House has done a horrible job of making this argument. There's a much smarter way to make it.
I agree. Finally tonight, the National Institutes of Health has spent more than $2.6 million helping truck drivers lose weight, even giving them motivational phone calls on their long drives. There's a growing health crisis among truck drivers in this country for obvious reasons. They're eating bad food. They're not actually exercising because they're driving the whole time. So the yay or nay, is this a waste of money?
Yeah.
Heather?
No, anything to help.
No, good for the truckers.
Okay, I agree. Absolutely. That's all for tonight. I used to drive at one point. It's a true story. I'm Joe Concha. On behalf of Rick Unger and the rest of our panel, I thank you for joining us tonight. The Steve Malzberg Show coming up next. Stay tuned.